Welcome to Brier's Music Showcase. I'm Bryer and welcome back to another video. So it's that special time once again. It's that time where I go through every CD I acquired throughout the month of November. I can't really say buy anymore because some of the stuff I have I didn't actually buy with my own money, but they're included, so there you go. I'm gonna be real. This is probably the most CDs I've acquired in a single month in this year in particular. I want to say it's somewhere in the 50s. I'll put the actual number there. So yeah, I got no space, but regardless. So if you're new here, then basically what these videos are, it goes without saying that I'm just going to go through all the CDs I acquired and then give my brief thoughts on them. So these are kind of first impressions. These are not like full in-depth reviews because some of the stuff I only had time to listen to once. So regardless, hopefully it'll be entertaining and there'll be a lot of surprises as we go. So of course, if you're new here, please give the video a like, subscribe if you are new. And without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So the first batch of CDs I have right now are CDs you've seen before, but I did not buy with my own money. These were given to me. Of course, these CDs were given to me by Mickey. So again, Mickey, thank you so much. So if you haven't seen that video where I unboxed his latest package, I'll leave a link down below so you can check that out. So, but of course, if you don't have time, then here, I'm going to tell you right now. But first up, we have this 5-in-1 box set of Dio, as in the Dio band. Of course, this is Ronnie James Dio's band he formed after he left Black Sabbath for 2 albums. So this is what it looks like, and on the back it shows the albums. It has Holy Diver, which I do own already. Let's see, The Last in Line, Sacred Hearts, Dream Evil, and let's see, Lock Up the Wolves. So let me just take them out real quick. So I'll give my brief thoughts on them real quick. So I already know, I already have this one. So of course it's a classic heavy metal album. Standout songs like the title track, Stand Up and Shout, Gypsy, Caught in the Middle, great song that is. Then you have Rainbow in the Dark, classic 80s metal at its finest, and of course Ronnie sounds incredible on it. Next up, Last in Line, very solid follow-up. Again, still very heavy. You Rock, the title track, I Speed at Night. Let's see, Mystery, Evil Eyes. Very cool, and cool cover too. Next up is Sacred Heart. Solid album. Wouldn't say I love it, but I do like it. There's some decent songs on it, of course. Let's see, can't really read, but King of Rock and Roll, decent opening song. The title track, let's see, Rock and Roll Children, Hungry for Heaven. Solid, but a little bit of a step down from the previous two. This one brings it back up with Dream Evil. Again, great stuff here. Again, band sounds really nice, kind of rejuvenated in a sense. I felt like Sacred Hearts was kind of them trying to be more commercial sounding. Well, Dream Evil kind of brings back the heaviness. Then you have Lock Up the Wolves, another solid album, probably my least favorite of these 5, but it's still not bad. Again, Ronnie sounds great on all of them, so nothing bad to say on that front. But yeah, very cool to have the first 5 Dio albums. So I think first 5, if I remember correctly, but I'm pretty sure. All right, let's put these back and let's continue on. All right, Mickey also sent 2 Alice Cooper albums. We have Love It to Death, and then we have Killer. Both very great. Definitely wanted to get more Alice Cooper. Of course, these 2 were from when Alice Cooper was a band and not a man. We'll start with this one. This is kind of where most people would say Alice Cooper really got their start, because they were on Frank Zappa's label originally. They released 2 albums, but then he gets to the 3rd album and they decide to ditch that and go for that hard rock, kind of glammy shock rock sound. And yeah, great stuff. You have Caught in a Dream, I'm 18, which was a pretty big hit for them. It's in My Body, Ballad of Dwight Fry, really great song, especially if you're a classic 1930s horror movie fan. Of course, he played, what's his name, from Dracula, Renfield? Yeah, Renfield. So yeah, very cool. And this one's probably the best one that I've heard so far. Again, pretty heavy. I wouldn't say Alice Cooper is that straight up metal band, but they've had pretty heavy stuff. And yeah, Under My Wheels, Desperado, the title track, Dead Baby. Jeez, what a pretty dark subject matter for the time. But pretty cool, and got a cool snake on there. So yeah, very happy to have more Alice Cooper in the collection. All right, T-Rex was also one that Mickey sent. Of course, I've heard a lot of great things about T-Rex, and many people, when I upload that video, many people have said that T-Rex are great, one of the great bands of the early 70s. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Mumbo Sun's pretty cool. Jeepster. Of course, the big hit, Bang a Gong, Get It On. Really fun song. Girls, pretty nice. Rip Off. Produced by Tony Visconti, who of course worked with David Bowie. But yeah, pretty cool album. I will say though, there's definitely going to be albums on here I feel like I need to listen to more. This is definitely one of them. We'll see how time kind of, changes my opinion. But as of right now, very good album. And of course, Mickey sent quite a bit of Paul Simon. So, of course, he sent me the self-titled album, which was his second album. Some good stuff here. I wouldn't exactly say I'm a die-hard Paul Simon fan, but I can't deny he's made some great songs. And this album has some great ones too, like Mother and Child Reunion. Of course, I had a pretty notable song, Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard. Hobo's Blues. Duncan. Let's see, Run That Body Down. Yeah, very lovely album. This one's pretty good as well. Let's see, American Tune is pretty good. Tenderness, Something So Right. Loves Me Like a Rock. Not quite fond of the album cover though. That's kind of weird. Of course, this was a pretty big one. I think Jason said this won a Grammy, and I can see why. Of course, it has pretty notable songs like the title track, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. Let's see, My Little Town, Night Game, Have a Good Time. Excuse me, Have a Good Time. Yeah. Again, I'm not a die-hard Paul Simon fan, but when you're in the right mood, at least for me, he knows how to set the tone right. All right. And of course, Mickey sent me a few live albums. I know he's a big live album fan. Again, I'm not the hugest live album fan, but there are some exceptions. One of them that Mickey sent was, of course, Genesis Live, The Way We Walk, Volume 2, Belongs, which is, again, there's a Volume 1, but the Volume 1 had the singles, like the more poppy stuff. This one has more of the prog rock stuff from the 70s. And yeah, if you're interested in hearing what these progressive rock songs sounded like in the 90s, I mean, you have Phil on lead vocals, of course. Still have Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks. And of course, you have Chester Thompson and what's the other guy's name? Daryl Sternum on guitar. I don't think I pronounced that name right, but regardless, you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, not bad live album. Again, I would kind of prefer the early stuff. If I want to hear Phil Collins cover, like not cover, but sing the Peter Gabriel stuff, I'll probably go with the Seconds Out live album. That's a much better live album. Anyhow, more on Genesis later. Okay, we have Unleashed in the East by Judas Priest. I've said it before in the video, but I kind of was already somewhat familiar with this live album. Of course, Rob Halford's vocals is just insane on this album, even though, yes, the vocals were done in the studio because apparently Rob either there was something wrong with the audio, or Rob was going through illness, so his vocals weren't quite in tip-top shape, but the rest of the band were live and none of that was tampered with. But it was only Rob who had to re-record his vocals, and regardless of what really happened, the vocals are killer. Some of Rob is great singing. Again, he's just still shrieking, screaming as high range, and even can bring it down. Yeah, it's still very good. Very glad to have it. As well as this one, and I think this is the last one that Mickey sent. I believe so, but we have, of course, Cheap Trick live at Budokan, and this is the complete concert edition, which has the full set, I believe. Definitely nice to have. Classic live album. I mean, to some people, it has some of the best Cheap Trick, or I should probably say the definitive version of certain songs. Like, of course, the big one is I Want You to Want Me. I mean, the one on the studio version is fine, but this version is probably the superior one. Is by far the superior one. Sorry, it's been a long day. But yeah, very nice. So that's all the CDs Mickey sent, for now at least. I know he said he's going to send me another one pretty soon, so I look forward to that. But let's keep on moving. These next batch of CDs are ones you have seen, but these ones I did buy with my own money. So these ones I did buy from the record store. Of course, we have Tom Petty, Highway Companion. I'm not going to go too in depth because I already did a review on Adam's channel, which is of course What the Gym. That's the name of the channel. I'll leave a link to that review so you can see my more in-depth thoughts on this album. But long story short, I dig it. I dig it. As well as this next one that we also did a review. See, we have Roy Orbison with Mystery Girl. Thought it would be kind of nice to have it for that review. I'll leave a link to that video in the description. We had Steve from All the World's a Stage on it as well as a guest. Yeah, again, not going to go in too in depth, but I dig it. Can't really spoil everything, can I? Anyhow. Alright, we have Phil Collins. I got 2, and this would complete his solo career in my collection. So we have Dance into the Light. And then we also got, going back, might as well say it now. Start with this one, probably my least favorite Phil Collins solo album. This is him trying to kind of tap into the world music, kind of like what Peter Gabriel was doing. I don't think Phil really does it pretty well. The songs just aren't really that memorable. The title track's fine, and I can't really remember the rest. He does a version of The Times They Are Changing, and from what I remember, I didn't really care for it. Yeah, it's okay, but not quite what I want from Phil Collins. This one's a little bit better. Of course, this is his, as of right now, final studio album. And basically what this is just a bunch of R&B, Motown, soul covers. Because, you know, Phil was obviously a big fan of that stuff. So, all in all, solid stuff. Granted, a lot of the songs I haven't heard the original, so I can't really compare. But, you know, from what I can hear, they're fine. They're decent. Obviously, Phil enjoys his R&B, so I'm not going to knock him for that. But again, will I go back to this album very often? Probably not. But yeah, solid, but I just got it because, like I said, I just want to have every Phil Collins solo album. Alright, next, Heart. We have Brigade, not Brenegade. Some people said Brenegade. I can't believe someone would do that. Brenegade. Anyhow, Brigade. Of course, this is by Heart. This is one of their 90s albums. This came out in 1990, so right in the turn of the decade. Of course, granted, 1990 was kind of like a transitional year. By that point, the 80s stuff was still kind of there. Yeah. So my thoughts on this album? I like it. I think there are better 80s Heart albums, but this is solid. Starts off with probably my favorite song on the album, which is Wild Child. Really good opening track. I really think that's a really catchy song. All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You was the big hit on here, and I'm pretty sure that Ann and Nancy weren't a fan of that song. They didn't even write it, I don't think. But yeah, regardless, I still kind of like it. But I can see why. But I can see where they're coming from. Let's see what else. Didn't Want to Need You. Fallen from Grace. Under the Sky. Yeah, pretty good. I dig it. I dig this period of Heart. All right, here is one. We have Gary Burton and Chick Corea, Crystal Silence. So it's a jazz album, all instrumental. Probably, I'm trying to, because I didn't hate it, but there wasn't really a whole lot to it. It was literally only just Chick Corea on piano and Gary Burton on some kind of xylophone. I forgot what. It's a very specific type of xylophone, like a vibraphone or something like that. I can't remember what it was called, but something like that. And that was it. That's the only instruments on this album, which is fine if you're looking for that particular vibe. But you know, when I want to listen to jazz, I kind of want a little bit more than just two instruments. So yeah, I mean the playing's great, but again, this is another one I don't know if I'm going to reach for that often. Maybe once in the blue moon when I need something to just kind of chill, maybe. But let me know what, again, I should probably specify that, of course, let me know your thoughts on any of these albums that I'm going to be showing. So again, I look forward to the comments. All right, next up, Fine Young Cannibals with their self-titled debut. Of course, Tom from Tom's Hit Parade sent me their second album and also their last album, The Raw and the Cooked, and I really enjoyed that album. So I kind of had somewhat high expectations for the debut, and I will say I do prefer the second album over this. Kind of more towards that, I guess. It kind of has that more 80s synth pop or synth pop, dance pop sound. You still hear a lot of that R&B influence, but I feel like on the second album they definitely leaned more on the classic R&B sound. Here it's kind of like your more run-of-the-mill pop rock sort of album. Again, not a bad thing, but yeah, it's still good. It's still good though. Like, of course, you have. I know their cover of Suspicious Minds was pretty well known. Johnny Come Home was another single. Let's see what else. Don't Ask Me to Choose. Time Isn't Kind. Again, solid debut. All right, now we have Robin Trower, Bridge of Sighs. Of course, definitely wanted to check out some Robin Trower since he's pretty well regarded as a really good guitar player. And yeah, this was a good one. Really great. Just good, heavy blues rock at its finest. I mean, the playing on here is really great. I think it's just 3 people mainly. Of course, Robin Trower on guitar, and I believe, let me look up who else was here. James Dewar on bass and vocals, and Bill Larden on drums. Lorden, I should say, not Larden, Lorden. But yeah, the 3 of them together, like, great playing on here. Pretty solid vocals too. Of course, you have Day of the Eagle, great opening track. The title track's great. Two Rolling Stoned. See, Lucky Love. Yeah, great stuff. All right, we're almost done with this section. We have one more to show. So this one I did unbox on camera, and that is something that's still over here, and that is of course this Fleetwood Mac's Future Games. And here's the disc, the CD itself. Again, I'm still bewildered I actually got this. Never thought I would get them. Forgive me for the noise you hear. My brother's doing something in the kitchen. But regardless, still, we're not talking about the packaging though. I'm still keeping it. Just gonna put that there for now. So, Future Games by Fleetwood Mac. I don't know if I should give my thoughts on it now, because of course this is a perfect time to plug. So me, Nick, and Scott, of course Nick from Townsend 909 and Scott from Soundlab Studios, are doing a little series on Nick's channel where we are reviewing every Fleetwood Mac studio album. And by the time of this recording, we've only released 3 episodes. We've gone through pretty much all the Peter Green albums, and the next episode should be Kiln House. Of course, by the time this video is out, we've actually, now that I think about it, by the time this video comes out, we've already reviewed Kiln House. So forget what I just said. So if you want to check those videos out, I'll leave a link to a playlist which has all the episodes. Please go support Nick and Scott too. So I might save my opinions on this album, but all I'll say is going to get good reviews. Alright, so now this next batch of CDs are stuff you have not seen before. So, speaking of Fleetwood Mac, I have this one too. I know I said we reviewed the Peter Green albums, so obviously I wanted to have this album for the review. So, yep, this is their 3rd album, which is Then Play On. Again, like I said, this is the last of the Peter Green era. Really great stuff here. Definitely a huge step up from the previous 2 albums, which, again, if you're a fan of that era, then I'm sorry, but those first 2 albums just weren't that good, in my opinion. But this was a huge step up from those 2. The playing's a lot more interesting. Jeremy Spencer's not on it as much, really at all, really. Danny Kerwin just really elevating the sound of the band. Yeah, great stuff. And of course, this is a hardcover edition, and it does include the singles released during that time. It has Oh Well, Parts 1 and 2. It has The Green Manalishi, and it has another song called World in Harmony. But yeah, great album. Again, go watch that episode in that playlist so you can hear our in-depth thoughts on the album. Alright, so now let's keep on moving. Okay, so a brief intermission. So these next few CDs that I have right here, there's kind of a funny story to it, so if you're not interested in hearing this story, I'll put a time code somewhere right there so you can just skip it. But here's what happened with these CDs. So this happened at my record store, so of course Folk Arts Rare Records. I go there pretty frequently. It's pretty much my go-to record store. One day, this happened like a couple weeks ago, so I went there like usual. I was just kind of browsing, seeing what they got, and I got a decent amount of CDs. I had a nice little stack. Then at some point, I noticed a guy walk in, and this guy kind of looked I don't want to be too specific, but the guy definitely looked kind of weird. There was something off about him. And I didn't actually see what happened, but it was kind of more off the corner of my eye. And then it clicked once I heard the commotion. Apparently this guy that just walked in, he noticed that one of the employees left their wallet on the counter, and so I guess in that moment the guy was like, why not? And just yoink, just took the wallet and just ran. And then another one of the employees just ran after them. So there was a lot of confusion. So it was kind of that weird, what the heck just happened type of moment. Let me just specify, I was kind of on the other side of the store. Like, everything happened here, and I was kind of more somewhere at the other end. So I was nowhere near it. But again, I was just kind of noticing off the corner of my eye when it went down. So yeah, it was kind of a weird feeling afterward. So I don't know if you would do the same, have the same reaction, but for me, whenever stuff like that happens, that kind of kills the mood. And so now I'm like, okay, I kind of don't feel like buying these anymore. I just want to go home now. And so I took the CDs, I put them in a random place. I didn't bother putting them exactly where they were. I was just kind of like, I just really wanted to get out because I was really done. So I left. I left the stuff in the shelf. I left the place. A couple days later, I was like, okay, maybe let's give it another go. Let's try again. I'm sure things have calmed down since then. I will say though, I was a bit nervous when I returned, because I was kind of, again, it's kind of stupid for me to worry about this, but when I left, again, I didn't have anything, but I did know the employees knew I had stuff in my hands, and when I put them back, they didn't really see me put them back, and I don't think they even noticed me leaving. So I was, again, it's kind of stupid of me to think it, but I was kind of worried that if I walk in and they see me, they would probably get suspicious, like, hey, did you take something last time we saw you? Again, it's dumb to think that, but again, just the paranoid brain in my head. But it helps that none of the employees that were there that day were there when I returned, so it was completely different employees, so I calmed down a bit there. So anyhow, moving on. So yeah, there I was again, kind of looking through the CDs again, when I noticed that the CDs I was thinking of getting were right where I left them, exactly where I left them. So they were there, so I'm like, hey, why not? So I did end up getting those CDs that I was gonna get the first time, but ended up getting them the second time. I'm not sure if that made sense. I'm not even sure this whole story made sense, but hopefully you found that entertaining. So these are the CDs I got. I'm not gonna try and reiterate that. All right, first up, I know Jason the Old Millennial is going to be happy about this, because I know he does a series on his channel where he goes through his favorite albums of all time, and this album was one of them, and that is Damien Rice, and this is just called 9, like the number 9. It's not even his 9th album, it's the 2nd album, I think, but it's just called 9. So I knew nothing of Damien Rice before Jason brought him up. Kind of a folk rock type of artist. I will say the artwork's pretty cool. I do like some of the artwork. All right, so all I'll say, pretty good. I wouldn't say I loved it, but has some good stuff on here. And I think Damien has a pretty nice voice, pretty good for what the music needs. I probably would like to check out his debut album. We'll see how I feel, but again, this could be another one of those albums I probably need to hear more, but regardless, pretty good. All right, next up, we have Fiona Apple. This is called Tidal. So I've heard a lot of great things about Fiona Apple. Kind of like an art rock type of artist, from what I can gather. And this is her debut album. So I was like, it was for $1, so I was like, might as well give it a listen. And yeah, again, pretty nice. Again, I don't love it yet. I probably would need to listen to other albums by her. So if you're a Fiona Apple fan, let me know some other albums I need to check out, because obviously it's her debut. I'm not sure if she was like great right off the bat, or it took a couple albums. But yeah, some decent stuff on here. So yeah, and she has an interesting voice too. I can kind of tell she has a Kate Bush influence. So that, I mean, hey, I don't mind that. All right, so I've talked about 3 Fleetwood Mac albums, and the 2 I've said are pretty good. Now here is one that's not that good. When we get to this album, I'm probably not going to have good things to say for the most part. But it was for $1, so again, why not? But we have Fleetwood Mac, Behind the Mask. Of course, this is their follow-up. I believe their follow-up to Tango in the Night, and of course, this is without Lindsey Buckingham, but you still have Stevie Nicks, Christine McVie, John McVie, and Mick Fleetwood, of course. And they needed 2 people to replace Lindsey Buckingham. So let me just look up, because I forget who they were. So they got Billy Burnett and Rick Vito, both on guitar and vocals. So, like I just said, when we eventually get to this album, again, there's not going to be a whole lot of good things. So I'm not going to go too in depth, but I'll say Christine's songs, definitely the highlights on this album. That's all I got. That's all this album has, is that the Christine songs are actually not too bad. Of course, speaking from a Christine fanboy. Okay, moving on. This was also for $1. We have Foo Fighters. And this is The Color and the Shape. Pretty big album by them. Of course, you have Dave Grohl and company. Again, pretty good. Just 90s rock, alternative rock, grunge, post-grunge. Yeah, I like it. Again, I don't love this sound, but you know, there's some nice songs in here like Monkey Wrench, My Hero. Probably my favorite song is Everlong, which was one of the big hits on here, which is, yeah, I've always enjoyed that song. Yeah, definitely nice to have a little bit of Foo Fighters. All right, so earlier I showed that Genesis live album. Well, at the record store, I found the volume 1. So yeah, I now have volumes 1 and 2. So I have the whole collection now. So this is, like I said, this is the shorts edition. It just has all the singles. You have Land of Confusion, No Son of Mine, Jesus He Knows Me, Throwing It All Away, I Can't Dance, Mama, Hold On My Heart, That's All, In Too Deep, Tonight, 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 and it closes off with Invisible Touch. So there you go. Don't have much to say. It's pretty much the same thing I've said about the volume 1. It's just, if you're curious to hear what they sound like in the 90s, go for it. All right, then I found this. We have GNR Lies, of course, by Guns N' Roses, their second album. Of course, this was kind of a disappointing follow-up to their debut because, of course, Appetite for Destruction is a great debut album. But then you get to this one, it's like kind of a step down because the first 4 songs were taken from a live EP. And you know how I feel about live songs on a supposed to be supposedly studio album. So yeah, not really off to a good start. And then the side 2, which has the actual studio songs, they're mostly acoustic tracks. Again, not a bad thing, but yeah, not really what I want from Guns N' Roses. Of course, this has Patience, which is a pretty well-known song by them, and I enjoy that song, but yeah, it's okay. But after the debut, yeah, it's kind of a letdown. Okay, just a few more to go from this stack. Okay, next up, we have, now most people probably don't know this one unless you're a huge jazz fanatic. We have, let's see if I can pronounce this correctly, Hiromi, something like that. So this is a Japanese jazz musician. That's her right here. So, again, this has, it's pretty basic. You have Hiromi on piano. You have Tony Gray on bass. Anthony Jackson also on bass. And then you have Martin Valihora on drums. Pretty basic. Just piano, bass, and drums. That's it. Yep. Yeah, this is really good. Now, this is more up my alley when it comes to jazz. Just great bass playing all around. The piano and keyboards on here, just really nice. Really enjoy the arrangements on here. Yeah, so I'm very impressed by this one. So I might pick up more from her. We'll see what happens. Again, they're probably going to be expensive online, so I'll keep an eye out for more. All right, we got more Whitney Houston. This came out in 1990, I believe. I'm Your Baby Tonight. She released 2 great pop albums before, and this one's kind of another step down. It's okay, but I don't know. The songs on here just aren't as memorable as previous albums. She still sounds great. She's still a great singer, but I don't think the songs were there on this one. So, oh well. All right, these next 3 are by the same artist. I don't know why I've just been in a weird kick for this person. So the person in question is Janet Jackson. Of course, the sister of Michael Jackson and, of course, the Jackson 5. So, again, I have no idea why I'm in a Janet Jackson kick, but I just wanted to get some of her albums. So this is Control. This was kind of her commercial breakthrough. And yep, some great stuff. I mean, she's kind of more R&B, kind of, or how most people, or how it's kind of, okay, let me rephrase that. Again, it's been a long day, and this is going to be a long video, so bear with me. But she is part of a genre called New Jack Swing, which is kind of a mixture of R&B and a little bit of hip-hop. This one kind of leans more on the hip-hop, not quite that hip-hop sound, but still very enjoyable. And she has a really nice voice. Yeah, controls pretty good. Nasty. Let's see, When I Think of You. Let's see, He Doesn't Know I'm Alive. Pretty good. Very fun album. That's something I'll say about all these albums. They're pretty fun. Okay, and here we have what most people consider is her best album, and that is Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814. Of course, pretty good album, I must say. It's actually a concept album, because I think at this point Janet was starting to really lean more on this, a bit more social commentary at the time. And yeah, I think it's pretty cool. You have a bunch of interlude tracks here, which kind of alternate between each track, which some of them I can do without personally, but the song's probably the most catchiest and definitely the song that definitely gets you moving more. I'm not much of a dancer, but hey, I mean, I still wouldn't dance to this stuff, but I'm just saying. Still, very good album. Probably my favorite album I've heard from her. And then I also got the follow-up to that album, which is just called Janet. Probably my least favorite of the three I have here, but still some fun songs. I do like her ballads though. Usually the ballads are put near the end of the album. But yeah, again, fun stuff. Yeah, I'm pretty happy to have more Janet Jackson. Speaking of the Jacksons, I did get a compilation of Jackson 5, because why not? Because I do love some of their songs, like I Want You Back, ABC, of course, classic stuff. And what's cool about this compilation, it actually includes some of Jermaine Jackson's solo stuff and even some of Michael Jackson's early solo stuff before Off the Wall, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, nice. Okay, nearly done with this section. So let's go back to some metal, because there's gonna be a lot of metal coming up pretty soon. So we have Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power. So of course Pantera were pretty big in the 90s metal scene. Of course, I know they started off as more of a hair metal type of band, but by the time they got to the 90s, they pretty much ditched that whole look, and now they going full blown, very thrashy. Again, they're pretty much the pioneers of the subgenre groove metal, which takes a lot of influence from thrash and just puts a more emphasis on the groove on this one. And yeah, pretty good stuff. I was writing something for a writing class, and let's just say this album really helped get me in the mood of the scene I'm trying to write. It's not that serious, trust me. But regardless, really good stuff. Heavy, great guitar playing by Dimebag Darrell. I mean, the vocals are kind of hit or miss. It's not my favorite vocal style, but you know, for the type of music they're trying to do, I think it suits it. And yeah, very good metal album. It's good to have some Pantera. And the final CD I got from this batch is Iggy Pop, The Idiot. Of course, Iggy Pop started out in the Stooges, and then the Stooges broke up, and so Iggy is now solo, and he was going through a lot of drug stuff. And during his sobering up phase, he kind of collaborates with David Bowie, and he produced this album. So, pretty cool album, very interesting. I mean, Iggy Pop, not one of my favorite vocalists, but the music on here is very, very interesting. Very different from, if you're a fan of the Stooges and you've not heard this album, very different from what Iggy was known for. And this is probably the only time Iggy's done something like this, if to my knowledge. Very atmospheric, takes a bit of punk, but also a bit of gothic, but also post-punk. It goes without saying that Joy Division were heavily inspired by this album, particularly from Ian Curtis, and allegedly this was actually the last album Ian heard before he, ends it. But regardless, very interesting stuff. You can definitely hear what Joy Division took from this album, so I think it's worth a listen. So very glad to have this. Okay, so we're in the final stretch now. We're still CDs that you have not seen before, but I bought from Amazon. So I know Jason and even Scott is going to be pretty happy to see this album. So we have Jim Croce, You Don't Mess Around with Jim. Been meaning to get Jim Croce for a while now, and so here it is. There it is. Yeah, very happy to get this one. I pretty much enjoyed every song on here. Jim has a really great voice and really good songwriter. The title track's great. Of course, Time in a Bottle, really good song. Tomorrow's going to be a Brighter Day, Photographs and Memories. Again, I could just list off the whole album, but it's a really good album. Very happy to have this here, so good stuff. Okay, we have Mamas and the Papas. And I know me and Nick did a whole series on the Mamas and the Papas, which finished recently. So again, I'll leave a link to that playlist in the description. There's going to be a lot of stuff in the description, so make sure you're actually going there to check what's down there. Anyhow, so we have this kind of collection type of thing. It has both Deliver and the Papas and the Mamas, their third and fourth album, and it's all on one disc. There it is. So I wanted to get them separated, but it's a lot harder than I thought. So I was like, this is probably the easier option. Good thing on iTunes you can separate them into separate albums. But I just want to have these two because I do enjoy these two. This one more though. This one's probably the weakest one of their 60s output, but still has some good songs on it. Yep. Go watch our reviews on both these albums in the description. Check the playlist. That's all I gotta say. Alright, up next we have Vanilla Fudge, their self-titled album. Now, if you don't know who Vanilla Fudge are, they're kind of this kind of bluesy, psychedelic, acid rock type of band from the 60s. So, they were pretty notable. I know Carmine Appice was the drummer on here, who's pretty well regarded, and I know John Bonham was actually influenced by him. And yeah, I will say right off the bat, the drumming, you can definitely hear where John Bonham got a lot of his stuff from. Definitely has you can definitely hear the influence. Yeah, that's pretty much the big highlight on the album. There's a lot of covers on it, but the thing is about what I found out about Vanilla Fudge, when they do a cover, they make sure to not replicate the original at all. It starts off with their cover of Ticket to Ride by the Beatles, and yeah, if you think it's going to sound like the Beatles version, no way. It's completely different. They truly make it their own, which is pretty cool, I must say. There's also People Get Ready, which was a Motown hit. And yeah, there's a lot more, but very interesting stuff. There's even Eleanor Rigby, of course, which is kind of interesting as well. But yeah, very interesting stuff. Again, not my favorite, but still very cool if you're curious. Yeah, of course, if you do get the CD version, especially this particular copy, I don't know why, but there's this weird voice when you first play it.
400 cycles per second reference tape, 71867, recorded at ultrasonic operating level. Set Pleasance Control.
So I don't know if that's an error or not. Luckily on iTunes you can change when the song starts, so you don't have to hear it, but still kind of odd. But regardless, very interesting stuff. Alright, I talked about David Bowie on the Iggy Pop album, but speaking of David Bowie, we got more. Here is Diamond Dogs, Very interesting cover, I must say, especially when you see the full image. So I'll show it, but there you go. You have David as a half man, half dog type of thing. It's weird. 70s were weird, man. Like I would know. Anyhow, yeah. Very good album. Of course, this has the big hit Rebel Rebel. Great song. And the rest of the album is pretty good. You have Candidate. The title track's pretty nice. 1984 is pretty cool. Yeah, I dig it. All right. Oh man, I'm getting tired. Anyhow, so this is an interesting thing in this haul. So the band's called Flaming Youth, and the album's called Arc 2. Now, there's one specific reason why I wanted to get this album. So, I want you to look close at this album cover. So you see all the members of the band here. Let's see if you can see, but does this guy look familiar to you? If you can't really tell, let's look at the back. This guy right here. If you guess that's Phil Collins, you're correct. So, this was the band Phil was a part of before he joined Genesis. This was actually the first album he ever officially appeared on. Let's see. I know he also was part of the sessions for George Harrison's All Things Must Pass, but none of his stuff got used. But this was the first time Phil was actually on a pretty major, kind of a major label. I'm not even sure if they were that big, honestly, but regardless, pretty cool if you're interested in Phil Collins history. Alright, so what is this? So it's kind of a mixture of rock, maybe a bit of progressive rock, even a bit of space rock, maybe. Very interesting. Phil does sing, but the rest of the band do sing here as well. Some solid stuff. When you do hear Phil's voice, you can definitely tell it's him. Still hasn't quite found his voice yet. Still kind of in that soft sort of vein. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. I won't spoil too much if you haven't heard it, but yeah, again, if you're interested to give this a listen, give it a go. Might be surprised. Alright, so we have a lot of metal to talk about. And this next four are probably the same band. As you can tell, I'm leaning back because my back's starting to hurt. Anyhow, the show must go on though. So I got 4 more albums from Black Sabbath. So we have Technical Ecstasy. So, yep, of course this was the moment where the band was starting to kind of lose its steam. Still some solid stuff on here though. I mean, Backstreet Kids is pretty good. You Won't Change Me, Dirty Woman, Gypsy, maybe. Solid stuff, but you can definitely hear they're starting to kind of lose it a bit. And then we have Never Say Die. All I'll say is that, yeah, I'm not a fan. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Yeah, this is kind of where they really didn't have it at this point. And of course, that's the last one with Ozzy for a long time. But yeah, I don't know. I know there are some people who will defend it, but I don't know. I'm not one of them, sadly. Then you have Seventh Star, which was originally supposed to be a Tony Iommi solo album. This came out in '86, and you have Glenn Hughes, who of course was in Deep Purple at some point. I actually quite like this one. I hear some people don't like this album, but I will say I am definitely one of its defenders. I would defend this album, not Never Say Die, unfortunately. Then I also got The Eternal Idol, which is a Tony Martin album. The first one with Tony Martin. Solid stuff. Probably the weakest, one of the more weaker albums, but still some good stuff on here. I think Tony is a good voice. Pretty underrated. What's cool about this particular issue that I have is that it includes some some of the sessions, because before Tony Martin was brought in, they were thinking of getting a different singer, and the singer was Ray Gillen, and it includes the songs that he sung for the album, but of course Ray Gillen didn't really stick, so they got Tony Martin instead. So it's kind of interesting to compare. So you can be the judge who sings the songs better, either Tony Martin or Ray Gillen. Let me know in the comments what you think. Alright, so that's all the Black Sabbath. We're still in the metal field though. We have King Diamond with Abigail. There's King Diamond himself. Look at that gorgeous man right there. That's a fine specimen right there. Alright, so this is a concept album. I'm not going to go too in depth in the story because this video is getting way too long. But anyhow, all I'll say, very interesting story, kind of in the more horror aspect. So if you're not a horror fan, probably don't listen to this album. But still, the playing on here is great. King Diamond, he's known for his high register, and yeah, very cool. Love it. Yeah, this was definitely one I wanted to get for a long time, and yeah, it was worth the wait. Alright, Saxon. We have Strong Arm of the Law. Again, in these hardcover books, like I have a couple more like that. Again, pretty good album. You have Heavy Metal Thunder. Let's see, you have Dallas 1 AM, which was about the JFK assassination. 20,000 Feet, Taking Your Chances. Yeah. Always enjoyed Saxon. Alright, so I think we're not done with the metal yet. There'll be more in a second. So actually, let's just do it now. Let's just get it over with. We have Motorhead, Overkill, their second album. Of course, you have Lemmy on bass. Then you have Fast Eddie Clarke on guitar. Then you have, let's see, who's the other guy? Phil something. Oh man, did I really forget the drummer's name? That's embarrassing. I'll find it. Don't worry. I might edit this part out if I have to. Phil Taylor. There you go. Or Filthy Animal Taylor, if you will. So, yeah. Yeah. It's Motorhead. Again, I've neglected Motorhead for a long time. I have Ace of Spades, and that's pretty much it. So, definitely want to try and make up for it and slowly get more Motorhead, because I really do enjoy their sound. Really heavy, very fast, and yeah, very cool stuff. So there you go. Okay, so now these next few are by, let's just say they're kind of Beatles related, because I pretty much purchased quite a bit of solo Beatles albums. So let's see, we'll start with this one first. We have John Lennon. We have Walls and Bridges. Of course, this was kind of during John's Lost Weekend period, where he was separated from Yoko Ono, and it was kind of just doing his own thing, and this is what came from it. I've heard a lot of people, well, I haven't heard, well, I should probably change that. I don't hear many people talk about this album. I'm just going to say, I really enjoyed this one. Dare I say, probably one of John's most underrated albums. Because again, I don't really hear people talk about it. It's kind of just there. But I really enjoyed a lot of the songs on here. Like Going Down on Love. What a great opening song. Really fun. You can definitely feel John is kind of enjoying his freedom. Mostly. Because there's definitely moments on the album where you can definitely hear John's kind of missing Yoko. But still, like, some good stuff. Whatever gets you through the night. Very fun song. Of course, that one has Elton John on the track. And of course, Elton's providing piano and backing vocals, which is very cool. And of course, I think it was a #1 hit. And if my memory is correct, I think Elton bet John that if the song hit #1, John will appear on stage with Elton. And of course, Elton won the bet. And yep, here's some. It actually comes with pictures of John with Elton there. And if again, from what I've heard, that was actually John's final live performance he ever did before his death. Shame, but oh well. But yeah, the whole album's very good. It has some great ballads on here, very fun songs. Probably the weakest song is Yeah Yeah, which is kind of John was doing with Julian. You have Julian Lennon on drums, and John's kind of just singing this little ditty. I think even Julian has said that if he knew that that song was going to be on the album, he probably would have played better. But nice gesture, at least. But yeah, very fun album. Very underrated. Okay, George Harrison with his self-titled album. Okay, so me, Adam, and Nick as well are going to appear on Adam's channel. We're going to review this album pretty soon. I'm not going to spoil it, but all I'll say is going to get pretty good reviews. That's all I'll say. And then we have Paul McCartney. Here, of course, is Tug of War. 1982, this came out. Pretty good album. I really dig it. Tug of War is great. Here Today, his tribute to John is very good, very emotional. Wanderlust is pretty good. Get It. Somebody Who Cares. It also includes Ebony and Ivory, which of course was the Stevie Wonder collaboration. I'm kind of mixed on the song. There's half of me that likes it, the other half is kind of like doesn't really care for it. I don't know. You can let me know your thoughts on it in the description. But of course, I did unbox this on camera before, but I wanted to keep the Beatles stuff together. Of course, I did get this McCartney box set, which has McCartney's 1, 2, and 3 on it. And I'll give my brief thoughts on each one. So, of course, you have McCartney 1. Obviously, considered pretty influential in the lo-fi type of realm, because it definitely has a very lo-fi quality to it. Of course, Paul does all the instruments pretty much, and it's just him. Yeah, some nice songs on here. Of course, you have Maybe I'm Amazed, which is by far the best song. Junk, let's see, That Would Be Something. It's pretty good. I will say though, I don't really care much for the shorter songs on here. I don't know. They're fine in context, but I'm definitely not going to go back to most of them. But still, very interesting album. Now we have McCartney 2. This might be a high take, but I think this is my favorite of the three. Yeah, this is Paul again experimenting with a bunch of synthesizers. I know he was kind of a little bit inspired from the Talking Heads. I thought there was I really enjoyed this album. I had a lot of fun with this one. Starts out with Coming Up, great song. Always loved Coming Up. Just love the funky nature of it. The bass work on it is very good and very catchy. Of course, was a pretty big hit and inspired John Lennon to return to music once he heard it on the radio. So pretty cool. And then you have Paul's probably his most notorious song, his most infamous song, and that is Temporary Secretary. I'm just gonna say it. I love the song. I don't care if it's stupid. It's the good kind of stupid. Earlier I said I wouldn't be dancing to Janet Jackson, but hey, if this was playing at a rave, which I don't go to raves, but if I were at a rave and they played Temporary Secretary, you bet I would be dancing my ass off to that song. Temporary Secretary, Temporary Secretary. Waterfalls is a great song. Nobody Knows. There's a couple instrumental tracks. You have Front Parlor. Again, it's just a simple instrumental, but I don't know why, but this is one of those few instrumental tracks on vocal albums where I actually kind of really dug the vibe to it. I don't know, I just hear it and I don't know, I just feel happy for some reason. My brother's making more noise in the back, so we're just gonna keep moving, so try to ignore it if you hear it. Anyhow, we have Frozen Days song, we have Dark Room, and of course you have One of These Days. Really great closing song. So again, probably a hot take, but I really enjoy this one. This is probably my favorite of the three, as I just mentioned. Speaking of three, we have McCartney 3. Of course, released in 2020 during lockdown. Very solid album. I do enjoy it. Some good songs like, let's see, Starts pretty good with Long-Tailed Winged Bird. Thought that was a nice opening song. Finding My Way, probably my favorite song on here. Women and Wise is pretty good. Let's see, Slidin', The Kiss of Venus, Deep Down. It's a solid album. Again, his voice is a bit aged, but you know, still Paul McCartney. All right. Again, I think I said that in the video, but of course, this is if you want to get McCartney 1, 2, and 3 at a pretty good price, this is probably the way to do it. I'm pretty happy I got this. Okay, we have one more item to talk about, and then the video is done. This is probably the longest CD haul I've done. Possibly, I'm not sure. I don't think so. But I don't know until I edit this video. But so the final item I have is actually a box set. Kind of similar to the McCartney box set, but on a bigger scale. So this is a live album. I know, shocking, right? But this is a live album I've wanted to get for quite some time because I know it has a lot of good praise. So the band's called UFO. I do kind of see their poster in the back right there. But UFO, and this is their live album, Strangers in the Night. And of course, this is the deluxe box set. Big stuff. So I'll read the top part because it pretty much sums it up. UFO's legendary double live album from 1978's US Obsession Tour, now expanded to include all 6 full shows that were recorded for the album, from the classic lineup of Phil Mogg, Michael Schenker, Pete Way, Andy Parker, and Paul Raymond. So I'll sum it up for you. So it includes the original live album, but then the rest are all the live shows they pulled in order to make the original album. So it's pretty cool. So I'll quickly show. So you take it off. There it is. Let's see. So I'll just take them out real quick and I'll just show. I'm not going to show everything, but here is the original album, and they replicated what the vinyl looked like. Show you the discs on the Chrysalis label. So you have that, and then here are all the live shows that they include. This is what they all look like. They all come in the same thing. They all come in these little sleeves, which is kind of nifty. Again, they're on the Chrysalis label as well. Probably the weirdest thing is that they actually had the nerve to give the booklet its own sleeve. There you go. Kind of strange, but oh well, I'm not going to question it. And you know, it just gives you a rundown of everything, photos and stuff like that. Pretty cool. So, I mean, does the live album hold up to its reputation? I am happy to say, yes it does. Yep, the playing on here is incredible. Michael Schenker, what a great guitar player. The vocals are pretty good as well, and the whole band was pretty much on fire on a lot of them. I will say I have not heard any of the alternate live shows, but maybe one day I will. But I'm only talking about the actual album itself, and yeah, it definitely earns its reputation. Again, great stuff, and of course a lot of the songs on here are great as well. So yeah, very happy to have this in the collection. So that is it. So there you have it. That is all the CDs I bought throughout the month of November. I will say I'm probably not going to get as much CDs in December because I have a lot already. So we'll see what happens. I'm not going to say I won't get stuff, but we'll see. We'll see how I feel. So, of course, if you've enjoyed and have sat through this entire video, please give this a like. Subscribe if you are new. Again, in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on any of these albums I have shown. I look forward to reading them. Of course, by the time the next video comes out, we will be in December. So, of course, once December hits, you know, That special time of year is upon us, and you know what's coming next. See you in the next video.